beautiful people. I hope this finds you well and your summer has treated you with goodness and grace. I just wanted to take a moment to drop in a video to share some of my thoughts around what has been unfolding, what has been unraveling over these past few weeks, this last month or so, a few extracts from my journal, and importantly, cosmically stir it all up as always. So let's start with the trip. There was a moment, and it was the first evening of the trip, where myself and Tristan had sat side by side at a waymarker and a sign, waymarker sign, and it was actually on a 4-point crossroads, and we sat there high up in the hills, and we're sitting there, Tristan and I, my son, sitting there looking out across the sky, and we was quietly watching the sun sink away into the west, sometimes silent, sometimes lost in conversation about life. And then as the stars began to appear, we started to trace the patterns of the stars together. How beautiful is that? Something that's so simple, but yet I don't think I will ever forget. And we were seeing like spotted Cassiopeia, the Little Dipper, and even Lynx, constellations that I hadn't seen in years. And we were just beginning to trace them, and he was showing me constellations that I never ever knew. How amazing, how beautiful is that? So when I recognised them again the next night, it was like meeting old friends. The South Downs National Park had been given dark sky status many years back, and my God, it truly is something. And I had forgotten how much I had loved that place. In my younger years, when I was really fit and able, I would go up onto the South Downs each full moon and take a full moon walk. Really beautiful. And I'd forgotten how much I love that place. So to return there and to share it with Tristan, my son, brought a depth of meaning I didn't expect. And we had these really beautiful experiences the night before. So that first night where we were sitting on that waymarker at 4-point crossroads just watching the sunset, we had made camp on an old wayside. So waysides go back to when people were travelling the land, and they literally are what you could consider as a modern day lay-by, but they were along trackways and they were waysides. A lot of the old travelling folk would pull into the wayside and they would create camp. So we found this old wayside tucked by this hedge, a few steps from the waymarker and the crossroads. And whilst we were sitting there and whilst we were organising and I was cooking up some food, I kept catching something out the corner of my eye. And always say, don't I, always say when it comes to contact with the other world, is to be aware of your spatial awareness. Be aware of your space. Meet it and be present with it. So I kept catching something out the corner of my eye, like a flicker and a shadow, a sense of a figure moving just beyond my sight. And Tristan, he saw me glance up, and without a word, I knew he had felt it too. And later on, he went on to describe what he had seen. So it we get there, I'll share that with you. So over the years, I've always woven a simple blessing at the start of a journey and a trip like that, where you're doing a multi-day trip. I've always woven a simple blessing at the start of the journey, with my intention to reach out to the spirit of the trail, asking humbly for it to hold us, to guide us, to watch over us. And I can say with a full heart, out there, we were only met with kindness, help, and goodness. And it's something that Tristan had noticed too. And I'm certain, through the people we had met, I'm certain the spirit of the trail was with us that first evening. As the sun sank, as it sank low, it had appeared to us both. And it was so beautiful to witness, and his curiosity about it lit something between us. He had too sensed something, and in that shared silence, with the light fading and those shadows deepening, I knew the spirit of the trail had revealed itself to us both. And he went on later that evening to describe what he saw. And he saw a tall man wearing a long black overcoat with a top hat, standing at the trail side by the way marker. Now, when he told me that, I went really cold, because I have over the years experienced that maybe 3 times over the years. And whenever I have experienced that presence, apparition, that archetype, because I believe it to be an archetype, it's always been on the roadside or the trail side. First 2 times been on the roadside, but on old roadways. So when I say it's an archetype, I absolutely within my heart believe it to be an archetype. So like the spirit of the road, the spirit of the roadway, and often lingering near crossroads or intersections. How crazy and incredible is that? I remember when he described it to me, I'm like, I just went goosebumped and absolutely cold. And he just said it like matter of fact. It was just like he just come out with it. And I sat there and thought, I've never ever mentioned that to him. And one time me and his mum had experienced that with him when he was a baby. He was asleep in the back of the car in his little car seat, and we had experienced it on the road. So we were with him when he experienced it. Yeah, something about that incredible. So I do believe, and I felt that in my heart, the spirit of the trail revealed itself to us both. And I remember the next evening, that environment, that wayside felt so welcoming. And next evening, we stopped somewhere very, very different, completely different. And I can remember waking up during the middle of the night, and there was just this blanket of fog, this deep, deep, deep fog. And if you'd walked like 2-3 feet, you would have disappeared into the fog. And then the moon kind of broke through, and it was kind of rising into the west. And I knew that we then were facing east. And I thought, how amazing, because when that sun does come up, we're going to be welcomed by the first warmth of the day. And because it being cold, that was such a gift. Things that you then learn, because then going forwards, I was like, well, actually, if we stay and stop, and I've done a lot of this over the years, but if we stay and we stop, we want to be facing east. So when the sun does come up, you're met with the first warmth of the day. All those little things that you learn through direct experience that you don't think about in day-to-day life. It's a bit like sitting there and just tracing the stars. How often do we do that? Something so simple, but yet it was like stepping outside of time. But yeah, the second evening was very different to the first. Woke up with that bank of fog, and just feeling as if it was a reflection of what was in a way kind of moving through the world. I had this kind of wave of grief wash over me. It was fleeting but heavy, and it felt like humanity itself feels as if it's standing on a nice edge, like teetering on the brink of some odd, strange no return. It's hard to put into words, but it was there, and it was like a knowing. And staring into that deep sky, I couldn't shake the sense that the world is shifting in a way that we won't come back from. And that hasn't happened overnight. It's been a slow drip leading us here. We're divided more than ever. We're sicker than ever, and spiritually sick too. You know, so much of the spiritual space almost feels like it's become a circus, and there's so much that is like just I think there's just this again there's just this rupturing that's happening from what is real, what is raw, from what is over polished, and it just does feel like it's become some icky circus. um yeah, that's things that I'm processing within myself, what I'm seeing, and we've grown so painfully disconnected from nature, and in so many ways from each other, in the ways that truly matter. I think when I talk about spirituality, it's not something that oh, that's nice thing to do on a weekend. Let's go here, or let's go and do that workshop because that's really really nice. It's there's more fabric to it. It's like it's deeper than that. Um, you know, it's become. Thank you. Real time nudge. It's become caught up in the same merry-go-round that everything else has been caught up in. So it's become this has this has the same momentum to it, and I think deep down, I think we all know it. Our way of living is really broken, yet most just keep carrying on. And that's the thing about spirituality. Is it growing corn, or is it become something nice and a distraction? Um, and my prayer, I guess, would be like, it feels like as if we are reaching a no turning back point, but it isn't an end. And I think that, and I feel that it is actually a massive, necessary, fucking wake up call, a call to remember who we are, who we really are, and what really matters. During the trip, Tristan and I stayed at the YHA. So a shout out to all the guys at Truly Hill, incredible team and community there, Youth Hostel Association. And I just felt like in these modern times, places like that feel more precious than ever. They were just this hub for all these travelers, cyclists, walkers, people accessing the wild, and it was a place of characters and there were stories. They have this communal fire pit. We used their campground, which was overlooking the sea, and they've got this just lovely shared space that has this goal of bringing people together to be able to access the wilderness in a very grassroots way. And I just absolutely fell back in love with that philosophy, association, and within the place and the hills themselves. And I think what struck me the most through the whole trip was how much I saw Tristan grow out there. The grit in him that he's always had, the fire, rarely hopping off to push the bike, even on the steepest of climbs. And I'll never forget one of the most toughest stretches coming out of Washington. He dug in and kept pedaling, never stopped once. And I could just see this pride in his eyes, and it made me so proud too. And along the way, we met the most incredible people, strangers who become a part of the journey, and characters that were full of stories, each adding colour to those days. That and the moon, the stars and the red kites, Tristan pointing out these red kites that never ever come this far south, but now are, so things can shift and transform and change. Really beautiful. And that's the beauty of it all. Out there on the trail, under the stars, everything strips back to what is real. And in that rawness of it, I remembered something I think we're all aching for, and that is how to feel truly human again. We're all navigating these strange times, and the world feels loud, fractured and uncertain. It's like me coming back to doing these videos. I've always wanted to hold an intention for each video that I do. I just don't want to just show up and share content. I want it to have meaning and purpose and add value. And I had to kind of go quite deep to find these words, because there's a part of me that's like, well, there's so much noise out there in the world. Do I want to contribute to that? There's a part of me that just wants to keep nurturing quiet places, and being in the space that I've been in over these last few weeks in around still consulting is that realizing those liminal spaces are more important than ever, because they reset, they anchor us back into what is really, 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 really important, what matters. I think we are so hurried and rushed that we're not able to really connect with the pulse and the heartbeat of life. And the other thing is we're kind of also really overstimulated as well. So I sat down and thought, do I really want to place something else out in the world that is noisy too? It's like there's this there's something shifting in me around that. It's like speaking from the silence, So yeah, we're all navigating strange times, hey? The world feels loud, fractured, uncertain, and yet life is still here, pulsing, waiting for us to grab hold of it with both hands. And the thing is, it doesn't have to be perfect. Like, think back at the trip, you know, it's like there we are, arriving at the campgrounds, and one unpacking the bike, and it throws a puncher, and actually that does feel like perfect timing. Could have been anywhere, yeah, but it was perfect in that way, you know. But it's like it doesn't have to be perfect, and it doesn't have to be polished. It just needs to be real and just lived, you know. Ride the bike, watch the sun sink behind the hills, sit in the silence with someone you love, feel the cold night air, the weight of the stars above you. When was the last time you saw a sunset? When was the last time you saw a sunrise? Let yourself remember what it means to be human, because in the end, it's not the madness that will matter. It's how deeply we chose to live. Messy, beautiful, wholehearted while we're here. Take it all in. Hold nothing back. Live wide open. So, as summer begins to draw to its natural close, the evenings are drawing in now, and within the coming weeks we're going to feel autumn begin to arrive. For me, there's been so many endings, and I kind of knew that around my birthday I could really feel that, interestingly. Yet I feel a fullness, and I also feel an expansion alongside that, and some of which is a natural completion, and just maybe rather than endings, it's beginnings into something new. And I can absolutely feel that as I look ahead as well. And as I say that, I've had this sitting next to me. I polished it earlier. My hip flask that is full of memories, and it's taken many a journey, literally hundreds of pedaled miles, gifted by a really good and great friend of mine, and inscribed into it is spirit meets adventure. It's now almost empty, after some shared handcrafted rum toff, you know, being at the campgrounds and around the communal fire, that just getting passed round, people dropping some into their little cups, as a sundowner, and one day this will be Tristan's. It will be Tristan's. So yeah, I wanted to share all of that with you. Some notes from my journal as well. What a journey! Always on the trail and never off. Until next time, sending you all so much love. Keep shining.